in the call to worship. We gather at a crossroad.
We know not what lies ahead.
We know that we will encounter betrayal, pain, and loneliness, but we will go willingly because we go together with Christ.
Let us continue on our journey with courage, hope, and gratitude. Amen.
Now join me in the opening prayer. God of the journey's end, we know that any day can bring both sadness and hope. We are formed and transformed by experiencing the good in each day and courageously facing the difficulties ahead. Draw us near to each other as you draw us near to you, so we may share strength with those who have less and borrow courage from those who have more.
Afio mai angangasa.
Come, Holy Spirit. Amen.
Psalm 22, 1-11, 14-15, 17-19. My God, why have you left me all alone? Why are you so far from saving me, so far from my anguished groans? My God, I cry out during the day, but you don't answer. Even at nighttime I don't stop. You are the Holy One, enthroned. You are Israel's praise. Our ancestors trusted you. They trusted you and you rescued them. They cried out to you and they were saved. They trusted you and they weren't ashamed. But I'm just a worm, less than a human, insulted by one person, despised by another. All who see me make fun of me. They gape, shaking their heads. He committed himself to the Lord, so let God rescue him. Let God deliver him, because God likes him so much. But you are the one who pulled me from the womb, placing me safely at my mother's breasts. I was thrown on you from birth. You've been my God since I was in my mother's womb. Please don't be far from me, because trouble is near, and there's no one to help. I am poured out like water. All my bones have fallen apart. My heart is like wax, it melts inside me. My strength is dried up, like a piece of broken pottery. My tongue sticks to the roof of my mouth. You set me down in the dirt of death. I can count all my bones. Meanwhile, they just stare at me, watching me. They divvy up my garments among themselves. They cast lots for my clothes. But you, Lord, don't be far away. You are my strength. Come quick and help me.
Hear now this account from the Gospel of John, chapter 18, verses 1 through 19, and John chapter 42. The day started in silence. Jesus took the disciples to a garden he knew, a quiet place where they could sit and pray and wait for what was about to happen. Judas knew the garden too, and he came there with the soldiers, carrying lanterns and torches and weapons like they were going into battle. Jesus spoke. "Who are you looking for?" "Jesus of Nazareth." "I am he," Jesus said, and the soldiers fell to the ground. "Who are you looking for?" "Jesus of Nazareth." "I told you that I am he. So if you're looking just for me, let my disciples go free." Peter took out a sword and went after one of the people with the soldiers. But Jesus said, "Put your sword away. It is time for me to drink the cup that God has given me." The soldiers took Jesus to the high priest, and Peter and the disciples followed him, waiting outside the gate. Someone asked Peter, "Are you one of Jesus' disciples?" But Peter quickly answered, "I am not," and drew nearer to the charcoal fire the police had built outside the gate. For some reason, he felt very cold. A police officer asked Peter again if he was Jesus' disciple, and again he answered, "I am not." Finally, a slave asked, "Didn't I see you in the garden with Jesus this very night?" For the third time, Peter said, "No." And a rooster crowed. Meanwhile, inside the gate, the high priest asked Jesus about his teaching. Jesus answered, "I have said nothing in secret. Why are you asking me?" The police slapped Jesus for being rude to the high priest. Jesus said, "Did I say something wrong? Why are you hitting me?" They took Jesus to see Pilate, who asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" Jesus answered, "Are you the one asking this, or did others tell you about me?" Pilate said, "I'm not a Jew, but your fellow Jews handed you over to me. What have you done wrong?" Jesus said, "My kingdom is not of this world. So you are king? You say I am the king, but I say that I testify to the truth, and everybody who belongs to the truth listens to my voice." Pilate asked Jesus, "What is truth?" But Jesus did not answer him. He said all there was to say. Pilate said to the crowd, "You have a custom that I can release a prisoner this time of year. Shall I release this king of the Jews?" But the crowd said, "No. Release Barabbas, the bandit." Pilate did not let Jesus go free. Instead, he told his soldiers to whip Jesus. The soldiers dressed him up in a ridiculous costume, a purple robe and a crown made of thorns, making fun of him, saying, "Hail, King of the Jews," while they hit him in the face. Pilate went out to the crowds who cried, "Crucify him! Crucify him!" Pilate said, "Crucify him yourselves. I find no case against him." The crowd said, "He has broken our law because he has claimed to be the Son of God." Don't you know I have the power to release you or to have you killed? He brought Jesus out to the crowds and said, "Here is your king." But the crowd said, "We have no king but the emperor. Crucify him." So they crucified Jesus on a hill under a sign which read, "Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews," dividing his clothing among the soldiers. Jesus looked down from the cross and saw his mother Mary and the disciple he loved. He said to them, "From now on, you must be mother and son to one another." And so it was. Jesus said he was thirsty, but they gave him only sour wine. Then Jesus said, "It is finished." And he bowed his head and gave up his spirit. It's early morning on Good Friday, and I find it hard to believe that we are in this place and in this time in our lives, and there are no words to explain the depth and the agony and the pain and the suffering of this day, of this Good Friday, as we embrace the reality of Jesus' death, the reality of death itself, and the suffering that we experience in our own lives. It wasn't that long ago, it seems, a few days ago, when we welcomed Jesus into Jerusalem with high expectation that he would be the one, the Messiah that will come and free us and liberate us from the oppression. In this case, the oppression of the Roman Empire, or the Roman occupation. And then, but perhaps deep down they knew that of Jesus' mission and who he was as the Prince of Peace, but perhaps they have forgotten that. But through the week, they witnessed and were confirmed that Jesus is the Prince of Peace that came to liberate us through the way of love and the way of peace and the way of compassion. So it's to find ourselves last night on Monday, Thursday in the upper room with Jesus' disciples, and now here we are in this day of a difficult day. No words to explain again the intensity of it, because we're in touch with the sense of loneliness, Jesus' loneliness that he surely felt on the day and in the hour of his death. And in a way, it sort of brings up our connection, Jesus' solidarity with us in our times and experience of loneliness and separation and sense of despair and abandonment and all of that which comes to us as we experience this coronavirus, this COVID-19, and that I wonder about the reality of Good Friday and in relationship to COVID-19 giving us a window into what Jesus must have gone through. Our lives have been exceedingly quiet and lonely. with this separation from each other, and experience the sense of grief and loss, and in our case, loss of jobs, the loss of our routines and our daily activities, the schedules of our lives, the loss of dreams, the loss of meaning, the loss of purpose, the loss, you name it. And so on this night, it seems that for me, there's a sense of solidarity of Jesus and his death with our loss, our sense of loss, our sense of death, experience of death and grief. Today we will celebrate and dedicate the life of God's beloved gift to us. Her name is Janet Harada, a longtime member at Wesley, who lived a long and rich and fulfilled life, 103, 2 months short of 104. And so we will be experiencing her loss and mourn her loss, and as we dedicate her body and her remains to the earth and to her spirit and her life to her Creator, to God, who gave her to us and to the world as a precious gift. And so we go through these losses and death experiences and grief and in these times, and we're grateful for the scriptures as we hear, the sort of the intensity of Jesus' grief this night, and in the Psalm 22 that was read for us, and Jesus' heart-wrenching crying out from the cross, himself feeling this experience of being forsaken. My Lord and my Lord, why have you forsaken me? This sense of abandonment, of a sense of being deserted and being left alone. And I try to ponder also the horror that his mother, the great sorrow and the pain his mother must have felt as she watched her son cry out these words from the psalmist, words of horror, the words of pain, these words that she had taught him when he was growing up as a young boy. And then we hear the story of the Gospel of John, the story of Jesus' arrest, the story of his trial and crucifixion, and his death on the cross. And there's silence, and it seems to me that we've come to this place, and I think we're coming to an understanding that who Jesus really was and is, and what his presence in this world is about. And I think we're coming more and more to understanding that. We may have failed to understand that last Sunday at Palm Sunday, and we may have failed that when we gathered in the upper room for the Passover meal, that moment when the disciples were feeling good about being together, singing hymns, singing songs of thanksgiving to God for God's deliverance and salvation and liberation, liberating them from all of these situations in their life as a people. But then I can't help but wonder, Jesus all the while pondering his life, knowing that he will die the next day, and perhaps looking at staring at the bread sitting there, and caught a vision of what would happen to him, that his flesh the next day, that, and then he being locked up with intensity into the cup sitting there, the wine, and he caught an image of his own blood that will be shed the next day, and how haunting and gripping and poignant and agonizing that must have been for him. And I don't know, and I know that the disciples were not even aware of that, and then I can imagine perhaps the confusion and the sense of shock when Jesus took these symbols of bread and the cup and the wine, and in the words of institution in the Eucharist and the Last Supper, there we talked about of his body, that his body says, "Take and eat." And to the cup he says, "This is my blood. Take and drink. Take my flesh and eat. Take my blood and drink it." And he says, "Do this in remembrance of me." Now, it must have been really difficult for the disciples to. This is cannibalism. But I think it's a way of Jesus reminding us again of God and God's near presence, of God's longing to come to us and to be with us, and in person, in body, and not just this. God defies this social and physical distancing, and God comes to us, as we've heard from the psalmist in prior weeks about God who comes as our helper, God who comes as our shepherd, God who comes to redeem us, to deliver us, and to liberate us. But in this case, I think Jesus with this community is saying, that God who comes to us, and not just to come to be close to us and near us, to be with us, but to enter into us. For God to become our own flesh and our blood. And God is flesh and blood upon which we feed upon. If we can get beyond the cannibalism nature of that, but to understand that the intimacy of how God is with us. And so in the midst of all this loneliness and the pain and the suffering that we're experiencing and the separation, Good Friday, this Good Friday reminds us of the depths, of the pits that we find ourselves, of death, of despair, loneliness. And Good Friday reminds us. And it's called Good Friday because of the hope that comes in the midst of despair. I don't know how low we can get. I'm sure we can get lower than we are now, and I don't think Jesus could get any lower than what he's experienced today on this Good Friday. But the hope, and why it's called Good Friday, is because of the good news. The good news of the hope that God comes to us. That comes and becomes our flesh, becomes our bones, becomes our blood. That comes to us and liberate us even from here, this place. And such is the hope for us. Such is the meaning and the heart of this day. And such is the purpose and the reason for Jesus and who he is, as Jesus, the embodiment of God that comes to us, that longs to be with us and dwell with us, not only in the good times and in the ordinary life, but especially in this depth moments, the depth of our experience. Good Friday. What's so good about Good Friday? It's the good news in our midst that God is with us. And then the hope if we don't experience that now, that the hope is that God is with us. God will come. God is with us through our loneliness, through death, through all of these experiences. Amen.
Abide with me, fast falls the eventide. The darkness deepens, Lord, with me abide. When other helpers fail and comforts flee, help of the helpless, oh, abide with me. Jesu lesu, lumoni olepo, yata ita imai, uafapo liuling yamato, ya eta itai, ua emasani ialangawa, ole satau, Roma lo natinga.